Hello and welcome to another TV Central podcast. I'm Aaron Ryan. Well, it's time to go down memory lane and have a chat with one of the original cast members of Heartbreak High. Now, he has been on to other things, of course, and is very busy with writing, directing, and, of course, with his role in Neighbours. But I'll always remember him as a school bully from Heartbreak High, which coincidentally has just been released on DVD with Season 1. The actor is Scott Major, and he joins me here at TV Central. Hello, Scott, and thanks for joining me for a chat.
G'day, Aaron. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great. Hey, look, Heartbreak High and the character of Rivers. When I mentioned that character on the show, what kind of memories come back to you?
Oh, look, it was one of my favourite roles ever, Rivers. I suppose it was because of the age I was, and it was one of my first jobs. I think I'd only been acting professionally for about 4 years when I got it. And yeah, look, the whole show was amazing. We had a group of people all thrown together. We were in a school that was closed down, and we're all just this one big family. And yeah, memories I'll never forget. I never realised how big it was going to be because we pretty much shot the entire first series before it went to air. So we were
Wow.
just there having fun, shooting a show, and then it went to air and started to get big.
Rivers was a pretty complex character, really. He wasn't just a school bully. He had lots of other issues going on as well. What was it? What was it like playing Rivers and getting up to all that trouble?
Yeah, look, I watched back the first episode a while ago, and I didn't realise quite how racist and sexist and what a mongrel he was. I'm not sure if we get away with it these days. But yeah, he was a comic. He did start out as a very troubled man. I mean, it came down to his upbringing. His dad wasn't a very nice person. His mum was an alcoholic. Slapped him around, as did his dad. So I think when he came out in the end, getting taken under his wing by Sam in more ways than one, the teacher, I think he in the end became a relatively functional person.
Mm.
But it was a lot of fun to play. I never liked playing the good guy because you always have to do everything right. Rivers definitely didn't have to do everything right.
You worked with the likes of Alex Dimitriadis, Abby Tucker, Tony Martin on the show. Great Australian talent. Did you think the Schoolyard show would be such a catapult for your career and that for the others?
Absolutely not. I was actually telling someone the story the other day. I was doing a play in Melbourne when I got offered the role in Heartbreak High. And I'd done the movie The Heartbreak Kid as well. And I got offered the series, and I was sort of chatting to a lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do it or not. It's got such a weird name, like Heartbreak High. It sounds kind of corny. I don't think anyone will watch it." Um, because it's Heartbreak and High. I thought, no, Heartbreak High School. That sounds really bad. So I had absolutely no idea that it was going to be the show that it was, and still to this day, I mean, I went to Paris I went to Paris a couple of years ago for Christmas, and I was walking down the street, and I looked nothing like Rivers did, and people still recognise me down the street from being Rivers.
In
So it
Paris?
had a world in Paris. Yeah, it was really big in France. I used
Wow.
to play it every summer holidays, and again and again and again.
Do you keep in touch with anyone from Heartbreak High days?
Yeah, absolutely. Sal Coco is a very, very dear friend of mine who I see all the time. Bub Guskos, who played his mother, we're still very, very close. Johnny Pollard I keep in contact with every now and again. Cal Walvey, who we actually didn't work on the show together, but funnily enough, he used to live with Johnny Pollard and I before he was on the show. When I left the show, he went on. Who
Wow.
else? I actually got a Facebook message from Alex Demetriadis the other day, which is good. I haven't seen him in a long time. But yeah, no, look, we were all part of this family, and we still stay in contact.
I've just finished watching, Once Upon a Time in Cabramatta that was on TV recently, and also the Aussie flick The Combination, which has a review on Central, which is coming up soon, with a lot of discussion about multicultural Australia and the Lebanese and Asian culture, and particularly in the western suburbs of Sydney. Now, Heartbreak High really set the agenda, didn't they, with all those years back, with having such a diverse cast. What was the talk back then about the series with cast in terms of race and culture?
Well, look, from where we stood, we were just a group of friends doing it. during the show, and it was only when it came onto air that there was such talk about the diversity, because that's what Australian schools are. That's we have a diverse, multicultural society. So for us doing it was only when it went to air and there was talk about it that we realised that it's not represented very well on Australian television. There's not a lot of real representation of what our society is. So look, it was great, and I value that time because I became very close to both the Greek and Italian communities in Sydney, which was hard at the start because my character was so racist. I remember shooting in Marrickville, where we shot the original few episodes before we couldn't because it was too dangerous. But I remember my character Rivers having to walk down the street and yell at Nick and Con, "You stupid wogs!" And in the middle of Marrickville in Sydney, that's not a smart thing to do. And I ended up having to be walked to my car by security because people couldn't make the distinction between character and person. So I literally had to be walked to my car. There were people sitting in my car waiting for me to bash me up, and so it took a while for people to make the distinction. But yeah, no, look, I think we need to see that in Australia because that's the culture we live in.
Well, Heartbreak High was able to do this so successfully for a number of years, and why do you think it's not being met with the same ease on shows like Home and Away and Neighbours? I notice if one of the shows have a ethnic character, it's actually quite a big deal, or it's a set, it's not quite as made with ease as it was on Heartbreak High. Why do you think it's not meant the same in these other soaps?
I think that's purely just the media beat up. I think it definitely is met with as much ease from the public. It's just the press that beats it up and says, "Oh wow, look at this," and possibly because there've been such white bread shows in the past that it is unusual to see. But I think both Home and Away and Neighbours are trying to move with the times and trying to get that on, but sometimes the media beats it up so much that they pull away from it.
Look, I could talk about Heartbreak High for the next 2 hours, but we'll move on. Just a quick question of note. You were the original Darren Stark in Neighbours, weren't you? What happened to that role? How come you were the original and then it was recast?
Well, I did the show, was the original Darren Stark. Then that was all the character was originally. And the character went so well, they decided to bring it back. But when they decided to bring it back, they did offer me the role. But I had just completed Heartbreak High. I completed Heartbreak High probably about a month before they offered it to me. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to go from Heartbreak High back to Neighbours. And I thought it was time I'd done Neighbours, I'd done Heartbreak High, it was time to move on and try and get some other sort of work. And I think Todd McDonald did such a good job with the character, they kept it in for years.
Yeah, it was years. You came back to Neighbours in 2008 in the role of Lucas. What was it like coming back to the soap world in Australia? Because you were overseas previously before that, weren't you?
Yeah, I did a bit of work overseas. I lived in London for a couple of years and did a couple of shows over there. I remember my agent ringing me and saying, "Scott, now don't hang up and hear me out first. That Neighbours is interested in you in a role." And I never really thought I'd go back to Neighbours. And not because I dislike or think Neighbours is anything. I think Neighbours is a great show, and I think it's part of Australian culture, as is Home and Away. They've been around for so many years, and whether people watch them religiously or not, they've had an experience with them, and it's helped, shape them in some way. And then I ended up getting the role, and I can't be happier. I think Neighbours, as an actor in Australia, there's not a lot of work around. So to be working, which I've nearly been there 4 years now, 4 years consistently, with a great cast and a great crew, I really didn't think I would love it as much as I do.
Yeah, well, Neighbours has returned now for 2012, so another year for the show in the last week. What's in store for Lucas this year?
Oh, there's big ups and downs for Lucas this year. Well, what I know, look, to be honest, I don't get told a hell of a lot. We often get the surprise when we get the scripts and go, "Oh, okay, that's what I'm doing." But no, he's going to be unlucky in love again. Um, and possibly lucky in love. I believe there could be romance on the way for him, but not your usual sort of romance. And of course, he'll still have his garage, which he owns now. After his father died and left him some money, he bought the garage, and he's also got his apprentice Chris, played by James Mason, who is doing some wonderful work, and also. He's playing the gay character on the show, which, you talk about multicultural. There's also not a lot of large representation on Australian television for the gay characters, either male or female. So that's great that Neighbours is doing that as well, and I think he's got a really big storyline coming up as well.
Yes, I did notice. I think it's Bobby Morley joining the cast. Will come on air later on as a love interest for him. So yeah. What else?
Yeah, well, Bob's on air at the moment.
But he's not on the screen yet, though, is he?
Yeah, he's on screen. Yeah, he was on the last 2 nights he's been on.
Okay.
He's been on for a while. He plays a nurse at the hospital named Aidan.
Okay. So what else can fans expect in 2012 from the show overall?
Oh, look, as I said, I get kept in the dark as the show in general, but we do have 2 new producers on board. So we've got Richard Yazik, who's the executive producer now, taken over from Susan Dower, and Alan Hardy, who's taken over from Neil Kingston. So when there's a changing of the guard like that, you can always expect some fairly big changes or some different footprints being left on the show.
An interesting note is that you've been involved in a little bit of directing with Neighbours. What made you make the transition to directing?
Look, I've always been interested in directing, and I love every aspect of the industry that I work in. But I actually got offered the role. I got offered the role by Sue Wilde. She called me into the office one day, who's the line producer in it, and she called me in and said, "Scott, are you interested in directing at all?" And I said yes, and then she set up an internship with one of the directors on the show, Tony Ossica. And yeah, just things went from there to there. It was an internship, which I've now sort of almost completed, but I'm still being mentored by Tony. I didn't do too much directing at the end of last year. It was more at the first part of 2011. But with the new producers on board, we've had a chat to them, and they're quite keen for me to keep directing this year as well as acting. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a good challenge for the year.
And can you see a future in directing past acting, or while you're acting as well in the future?
Well, yeah, look, a question I often get asked is, which do you prefer? I don't prefer either. I love both. And yeah, I want to continue doing both, whether it be at Neighbours or other Australian dramas or film, or I do a lot of writing myself, and I do. I try and keep my fingers in all pies. The industry is a very small industry, and the more strings to your bow you have, the more chance you have of getting work. And I love being on set in whatever capacity it is.
So tell us a bit about that writing. What sort of things do you write? You writing TV shows or plays, or what sort of things are you writing?
Well, the things that have got up that I've written, the plays, I did a show in 2006 for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival called Both Sides of the Bar, and I've written quite a few plays as well as that. I've also got a TV series that I've written that I've been trying to pitch to the UK market, and I've got a couple of short films and a feature that I've written. So yeah, I just keep writing them, and hopefully one day some of them will get produced.
All right, we've talked about Heartbreak High and then sort of jumped to Neighbours, but I want to go right back for a moment. Tell me about growing up in Melbourne. Were you in a sort of a large or small family?
Medium-sized, I suppose. I've got 2 siblings. I've got a brother and a sister.
Okay.
Both older than me. I'm the baby. Yeah. So, and a mother and father who were together. My father unfortunately passed away 3 years ago. So, we had a very good family.
Do you have one of those stories where there was an inkling acting might be something for you, and you were always performing in front of mum or something like that? Where did the acting come from?
I wasn't. Look, I was a smart ass, let's be honest. Acting, I sort of almost fell into it as such as my friend of mine was doing a lot of modelling work when he was, when we were very young, like 10 or 11. and he could buy the best skateboards and best cricket bats and all that kind of thing. So I convinced my mum to let me join, my mum and dad to let me join the modelling agent. For obvious reasons, didn't get any modelling work, but what I did get was an audition for an ABC series called New Winners, and I did a show on that called His Master's Ghost. And so 5 auditions later, I ended up getting that role, which was great. And then I realised that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my working day. So I ended up going off and training at the National Theatre and a few other places like that to get it in. But no, I wasn't acting. I suppose I wasn't an 8-year-old kid wanting to be on the theatre. It was sort of I got a job and then realised that that's what I wanted to do. My dad was an AFL radio commentator on radio for many, many years with someone named Jack Dyer. They were the captain in the major. They were number 1 ranked for about 25 years. So I was, in a way, involved, had a concept of what it was like to be in the media.
Mm. Wow. Something you just said there, which I had written down. You'd said in a previous interview, about the modelling thing, and you sort of said and this was the same quote as what you just said a minute ago, and for obvious reasons, I didn't get into modelling. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm not really the model type, am I? I'm not very pretty, for that age, they're looking for very cute young kids, and that's something I definitely wasn't.
Well, I'm thinking that the zillions of young girls watching Heartbreak High would absolutely disagree with you.
Well, in Heartbreak High, maybe I was, but it's I was still fairly rough around the edges. I wasn't clean cut in any way, and generally with modelling, they like more clean cut.
Mm. Hey, that first taste of acting that you had in that TV movie, More Winners, his Master's Ghost. Now, I haven't seen that, but obviously that was your first major role. What was it like? Tell us about that experience. I mean, turning up to your first sort of professional role and stuff like that.
It was mind blowing, and I still remember the feeling of going in and having rehearsals, just thinking, oh, this is kind of unbelievable and unheard of, and then getting my makeup done, getting my costume done, and just about to go to set. One of the other cast members, David Presser, who was a bit older than us, he was probably about 16 at the time, and we're all 13, 14, and he was coming back from set, and I said to him, have you filmed a scene? Have you shot a scene? What was it like? Just totally in awe of, my God, I'm going to go up there and they're going to shoot it and it's going to be on film, and it was absolutely and totally mind-blowing. And the thing I remember about that shoot the most was just the family atmosphere that is created on these shows, and I think that's something you get addicted to in a way.
Mm. I was saying a TV buff, always have been, and another series that you're in that, I must say I've never heard of, but I'm really surprised when I looked at the cast list for it, and that was a series called Late for School. It had Sarah Chadwick in it, Stephen Curry was in it, Frankie J. Holden, and even Matthew Newton in it. I'm not sure why I haven't heard of it, but tell us about that experience.
Yeah, look, that was. I thought that was a great little show. To be honest, it was a sitcom. I think it lasted 26 episodes, or maybe 13. I can't really remember. Shot at the same studios we shoot Neighbours at, funnily enough, which was almost like coming home. It was a quirky sitcom about Sarah Chadwick's character went back to school to do year 11 and 12 with her daughter, who was played by Melissa Thomas, and her son Matthew Newton also went to school and was best mates with Stephen Curry's character. And also, actually, then there was my character, Oates, who used to beat up a character, Sefton, all the time. And that's basically all my character did. He went around and beat up Sefton in certain ways as the school bully in very comedic ways. And he was played by Anthony Engelman, who I think did quite a bit on Neighbours for a while. I think he was Stonefish. Mm. Look, that was a great experience. And the best thing about that show, I think, for me, was we shot it in front of a live studio audience. So you're shooting and you've got the live studio audience there as well. So you sort of have the best of both worlds.
Mm. Hopefully that gets released on DVD or something, or on one of the multi-channels. Be great to see that one. Look, I think the movie Heartbreak Kid would have been next. Now most people think Alex Dimitriadis' character was the only one that went from the movie to the series, but there actually were a few of you, weren't there?
Yeah, there was myself, Catherine Halliday, who played Rose, then and Alex. I think there was just the three of us, if memory serves me correctly.
Was
Yeah.
Doris not in Heartbreak High?
Oh, of course, Dorothy Lane. Yes. Dorothy Lane, who's a wonderful, wonderful person. Unfortunately, someone who I haven't kept in contact with, but her and I were extremely close during the shooting of the Heartbreak High. We just got along like a house on fire. So, yeah, she's a very, very funny, very great woman.
So how did that transition happen? Did you literally just get a call months later and say, "Look, we're doing the TV series. You've got the job," or did you have to audition again, or did had?
Um, I was a bit cheeky back then, and no, um, I heard the show through the media was going, the movie was going into a series, and I still had the cast and crew list from the movie. So I found the producer Ben Gannon's phone number from the crew list, and proceeded to ring him and say, "Oh, g'day, mate. Congratulations! I hear the movie's going into a series. That's fantastic. I'm hoping that you're going to use Rivers." And he actually originally said, "No, we haven't. We're not using the character Rivers in the series." And I said, "Come on, mate. You have to have the bad guy. It doesn't work otherwise." And he said, "No, sorry, mate. No, it's not happening. It's not happening. Not happening." And I went, "Oh, fair enough." And then about a week later, I got a phone call from my agent. Got a phone call from the production company saying, "Hey, we want Scott to move up to Sydney next week to work in the series." So it was purely, I think, me ringing up and giving a bit of a hassle that made it go through.
Mm. These are great little tidbits. I'm just imagining Heartbreak High now without Rivers. That was almost what could have happened. You had bit parts in shows like Wildside, Blue Heelers, GP, Newlyweds, Police Rescue, All Saints, Water Rats. Any standout memories with any of those?
Oh, look, they were all good. They were all great. Wildside was the same producers as Heartbreak High, so it was good to go back there. And Nico Lathouris was the drama coach on Heartbreak High. He was also the drama coach on Wildside, and he was a very intense man. He is a very intense man, and I loved working with him. And he always pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed me. And I remember one time being on set at Wildside, and I was doing a scene. It was supposed to be a romantic scene as such, and it just wasn't working. It was with Jess Napier, and it just wasn't working. This wasn't working, and he came on a set and said, "All right, well, what's your actions and your objectives?" I said, and he said, "All right, do you know your lines?" I went, "Yeah, I know my lines. Of course I know my lines." He said, "So you know your lines, but you don't know your actions and your objectives," which is a acting method that he uses. And he ended up kicking the entire crew off set and working with me for 15 minutes and yelling at me for never coming onto his set without knowing my actions and objectives again. That was a memorable moment, not possibly a pleasant one, but a memorable moment all the same. But no, they were all good.
1999. Now you started the movie Envy. Now, admittedly, I'd not seen the film, but decided to because I was interviewing you, I'd watch a clip of it. Now, randomly, I got a scene of you in a very tight set of leather pants. Now, you and this girl seem to have pinned down some guy in the bed of what seemed to be a hotel room or something. The girl got out some lingerie to tie him up. You were laughing and gave him a kiss on the cheek, and that was the end of the clip. So I guess my question is, what happened next, and what was that movie about?
That was a great movie. It was quite a dark film. It was written by Jeff Truman and directed by Julie Money, and it was basically the first story about revenge. These kids, this gang, which I was the leader of with two girls. In fact, Abby Tucker was in that film as well.
Mm.
It was also in Heartbreak High, obviously. Basically, the story goes that these kids stole a dress off the clothesline of a house, And the woman saw these kids in the dress at the pool, and the woman who originally owned the dress and stole it back. And then from there started a series of events where these kids, these bored kids, took revenge on the family through the son by assaulting the son, as is shown. And then it's the story about the mother's protection and protecting the child, and the lengths she'll go to stop these people harassing her family. So as I said, it's quite a dark film, but it's I think it's a great film.
You did mention that Abby Tucker was in it. If you appear in different shows with people from Heartbreak High, is that just a coincidence, or do people actually sort of, when you get called, sort of suggest people to producers and stuff like that, or is it just a coincidence when people like yourself?
Purely just a coincidence. I don't think people try and get the old crew back together. But it's nice when it happens. As I said, the memories from Heartbreak High, I think anyone who was in it during that period, and possibly after, there's a connection that we'll never lose.
Mm. Look, I'm definitely going to be getting a copy of that film for sure. In other interesting move, you starred in a handful of episodes of Blue Heelers over the years, playing different characters. Was that weird? I mean, what happened there? Did they like you so much they just kept calling you back for different characters? I think there was at least 3, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was 3 or 4, I think. Yeah.
Mm.
Blue Heelers was one of those shows. I think it ran for 13 or 14 years. I'm not quite sure how many. But there's only a certain amount of the work in Australia, and I think they had a 4-year rule. If you had been on it, then 4 years later you could go on it again. And I just happened to fit into that 3 or 4 times. So although the last 2 were quite close together, I think. Yeah, no, it was always weird, but always appreciated. And with a show like that, the guest cast can come and go. The show's not about the guest cast. The show's about, the guest cast are just there to push the story of the main cast. And Blue Heelers is very much about the main cast and how they deal with the situations and their loves and lives. So, yeah, you can get away with it on a show like that without the audience remembering too much. And I did change my look quite a lot over the years.
Hey, one more role to talk about, which was hard to miss, obviously, Tom Morgan in Always Greener. Just tell me more about that experience on the show, because it was definitely a fan favourite, wasn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely adored Always Greener. And we did 2 series, and we were just about to go into the 3rd when David Leckie came into Channel 7 and decided to axe it. It was a brilliant show. It was so much fun to shoot. The feeling on the cast was amazing. I mean, you had Michaela Bannis and Caitlin McDougall, John Howard, Daniel Bowden. I mean, the cast was just amazing. And it was, and for me personally, I loved the role of Tom Morgan. It was so different to anything I'd played before. Sort of an illiterate farmhand, an innocent guy who would, never do anything wrong intentionally, and also had a hard life and a hard upbringing. But he was just a genuine, decent, beautiful man through and through, and but also struggling with the real world and society. And yeah. I mean, the producer Joe Porter, who now does obviously Pact of the Rafters and so forth, created by Bevan Lee, who also does Pact of the Rafters and Winners and Losers. The show had all the makings of a really great show, and it did do really well. I think when it got axed, it was rating 1.5 million, which, in this day and age, in this current climate, would be a runaway hit. So it was being axed when it was a runaway hit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people wonder what happened with the show. I mean, as I said, it was a massive ratings hit in its first season, and then my understanding was there was a time slot change. I think it either went from Sundays to Mondays or Mondays to Sundays. Something happened there, and then it didn't do as well in its second season. Although, as you said, it was still very strong. So do you think
very strong, but it was just comparatively to how the first season was going. In the first season, we were rating 1.8, 1.9 every week. Million, and then the second series is sort of like 1.4 to 1.5. But still, that was still winning its slot. Or no, I think it was being beaten by 60 Minutes. I think that's what happened. They decided to put it up against 60 Minutes, or something like that. I can't remember. It's 2001 now. It's quite a while ago. But yeah, no. Look, as I said, it was still rating very, very well comparatively to these days, and I think. yeah, look, who knows what happened. We were literally 2 weeks out from shooting the third series. We'd all been approved. Our contracts had been signed. We were going ahead to shoot the series, and I was actually doing a photo shoot for the third series to promote the third series. And when I came out of the photo shoot, I had 4 messages on my phone letting me know that the series had been axed. So yeah, it was a weird situation. I still probably don't know exactly what happened. Something behind closed doors.
Mm. Now, I remember you had a few nude scenes in Always Greener. Would it be right in saying you've obviously got no issues pulling off your gear for a TV role, or is it something that you prefer
Oh,
not
look,
to do?
it's never fun, and I would would prefer not to do it. But I think most of the roles I've done, I've ended up getting my gear off for most of the it's long-term stuff. I suppose it's just part of the job. It's just what you do, and it's very uncomfortable in the day. In fact, I've got a nude scene coming up in Neighbours soon, I think, which is going to be fun and games. But yeah, water rats. I had to get my whole gear off. Yeah, no, I don't like it at all. But it just seems to follow me around.
Yeah, I'm
I think
seeing a
people like.
pattern
I think
now.
people like laughing at me with my clothes off.
Mm. Look, let's talk about what you're up to now. I believe you're rehearsing for a play, All This Intimacy. Tell us more about that role in the play.
Yeah, look, well, I'm very early stages of rehearsals. In fact, I've got to head off and see the venue soon that we're putting it on at. We're putting it on at Chapel Off Chapel. It opens on Feb 21st of this year. It's a great little play. It's written by a man named Ajib Joseph from New York. And it basically follows my character, who's a poet and a poet lecturer who happens to, no, I suppose accidentally, but not really, impregnate 3 women in 1 week. And then
Accidentally.
accidentally, yeah, well, he didn't intend to. And just the fallout that comes from that. There's his next door neighbour, an older woman who's married. There's his ex-girlfriend, and one of his 18-year-old students. His ex-girlfriend's actually his ex-girlfriend's sister's marrying his best friend as well. So there's lots of fallout that can occur from that.
Yeah, aptly titled then, All This Intimacy. That's why it's called
Indeed.
that. Couple of quick questions, just so we know more about you. What do you like doing in your spare time, if you've got any?
Well, I don't, well, that's probably exactly right. I don't have a lot of spare time. I try and keep myself busy all the time. I directed 2 plays at the end of last year and also appeared in one of them, as well as directly on Neighbours, as well as doing that full-time job. But when I do have some spare time, or for fitness as well, I like to kayak. I live near the ocean, so I sea kayak. I try and get out there 3 or 4 times a week. Play a bit of guitar badly, and also ride my motorbike.
Oh, cool. Are you married to have a partner?
No. I've been a single man for about 3 years now, which has been fantastic. Once again, I don't have any spare time, so I'm sort of married to my work as such at the moment.
Mm. And what actual shows do you like watching on telly? Your own preferences?
Um, I try and watch all Australian drama just because it's my industry and I try and support it. I think the ones that I've liked last year were I enjoyed Winners and Losers, Crownies on ABC. I also
Yeah.
quite enjoyed, and also Rake. I thought was excellent.
And what about
Oh,
movies?
and the Slap.
Oh,
Also,
The
the
Slap,
Slap.
yeah.
The Slap was brilliant. As was Cloud Street. So last year was a really good year for Australian drama, I thought.
Mm. And what kind of movies do you like?
Depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm tired and drained, then I'll watch an action film. If my brain's still working, then look, anything goes.
You've had a busy few months writing, directing music videos and all that. Tell us about these things. What have you been up to?
Well, look, earlier last year, which has now just finally been released on iTunes, I directed a series of 4 live music videos for a band called All the Cattle. two of which are available on iTunes now to buy. So if you look up All the Cattle, you'll be able to find those. It's a great band, and that's a lot of fun doing that. I've actually got to run off and shoot another clip now with one of the girls who's currently on Neighbours with me, Freya Stafford, who plays Amelia, Michael's sister-in-law. She's also a brilliant singer, and she's recording some stuff in the church today, so I'm going off to record that. Another friend of mine's band, Tony Johansson, The Land of Plenty, I've recorded a clip for them. It's probably released mid this year for a song called Valerie, an original version, not the one that the Zootons did, and Amy Winehouse covered. So I've done that. Also shot a short film for Tropfest early December, sort of mid-December this year, which we've cut and submitted, so hopefully that makes it through the finals. So, yeah, apart from that, nothing, just being lazy.
Yeah, sounds like you need more work too. Second last question, because people always love this. Always lots of goofs in the film and TV industry. Tell us about. Have you got an unusual and embarrassing situation you've been caught in?
Oh, look, many. I think one of the ones from the early days was when I was shooting late for school. I was doing a scene where I had to get my gear off, funnily enough, and filming in front of a live studio audience. The cameras broke down, and so I was out on set and just a flesh-coloured dancer's G-string in front of 100 people, just waiting for these cameras to be there, waiting, and I was but a 16-year-old boy, and I was quite nervous and not really happy with what was going on. And then Frankie J. Holden saved the day and ran out from behind stage in his underwear and started doing pretending to pose like a bodybuilding competition to sort of ease the tension on me. So that was something I'll always remember him for and thank him for, because it was a very uncomfortable situation.
Beautiful. Finally, what do you think that the future holds beyond this next chapter? You got all this intimacy and Neighbours, but more importantly, I guess, what would you like the future to hold?
Oh, look, I'm quite happy on Neighbours at the moment. I am contracted through to 2013, so continue to do Neighbours, continue to get my own projects up. I had a meeting yesterday about writing a new piece for theatre, which is sounds really interesting, in conjunction with working with a few homeless people in Melbourne. So that's an interesting project. It looks like it'll get up in November. I'm also helping writing and direct another play for July, which will be shown at Revolt. I think that's called What to Do After a Breakup. And I've also got a few short films that I also want to shoot and keep developing the features that I've got. I've got a couple of features that I want to keep going. Long term, I have a small pipe dream to learn French and move to Paris and try and work in French cinema. But that's a very long off pipe dream. So we'll wait and see. Stay tuned.
All right. Well, as I whack in another episode of Heartbreak High, which I've been watching season 1, which is out on DVD, and find a copy of Envy and somehow find Late for School. Sounds very interesting with that cast as well. I'd like to take this opportunity. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me, and all the best with everything.
Thanks very much, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Scott Major, star of Neighbours, screening weeknights on 11 at 6:30 p.m, and you can catch him in all this intimacy from the 21st of February in Chapel in Paran in Melbourne. Heartbreak High Season 1 now out on DVD as well. That's all for this podcast. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more podcasts real soon. Until then, I'm Aaron Ryan for tvcentral.com.au. See you then.